There you go. Nick Wright joining us live. First things first. So my theme today is, what do you want me to do with these teams that have bad Sundays? I can't bail on Miami or Detroit. They got good quarterbacks. I mean, you look at them. What do you make of my list?
Well, I think the hierarchy is maybe, it's rounding into form the way I hope my Chiefs do in the final month of the season. I can't disagree with any of it. The Chiefs deserve to be where they are. You could have them lower. I understand that. The only team that I think people are going to raise their eyebrows about with your rankings is Philly. But the fact of the matter is this. Philly doesn't have a mediocre defense. They don't even have a bad defense. They have a horrible defense, Colin. They are bottom 5 defensively in everything that matters. In points, in yards, in pass defense, in third down defense, in red zone defense. We have had 57 NFL or Super Bowl champions. 53 of them have had a defense at league average or better. The worst defense to ever win a Super Bowl was the 2011 Giants, and this Philly defense is markedly worse than that one. And the reason that I think Philly should be really concerned is defensively, some of these issues existed last year. If you remember last year, they were historic from a sacking the quarterback perspective, the most in 35 seasons. But despite that, every time they played a big-time quarterback, that guy moved the football and put up big numbers, except for Trevor early in the year in a downpour. And so I think for 2 years now, Philly has had a defensive issue. This year, they're not getting, the historic sack rate. And I think everyone can move the ball on them. Because of that, I agree with your hierarchy entirely. And you said it almost as a throwaway about the Cowboys kicker. I do think it's interesting, your top 4. You have Butker, one of the 3 best kickers in the league. You have Justin Tucker, the best kicker in NFL history. This kid on the Cowboys, who seems to be spectacular. And then a rookie question mark in San Francisco. And I wonder how much that could matter, because those other teams all have either in Butker and Tucker, the 2 of the best kickers in the league. And the Cowboys guy this week had one of the best kicking games I've ever seen. He was just from 60 out. Never a doubt, with seeming ease. So I think that's an interesting point you raised.
Yeah, I think Mike McCarthy's situational football concerns me, and he takes away some of that. So. Yeah. Yesterday, it's like I could think 2 things at the same time. Kadarius Toney was offsides, but I do think officials late in games could be more instructive and say, hey, D Ford or Kadarius Toney, guys, let's get it lined up. And I said this with my kids. I try to put my kids in situations to succeed. They don't always succeed, but I want to give them the best chance to succeed. And I do think officials sometimes should go, guys, get behind the ball. But I acknowledge it was a mistake, and Toney makes a lot of them. Where do you land on it?
So it was definitely a mistake, and Toney makes a lot of them. The frustration from Kansas City comes from a number of places. One is, and credit where it's due, Dan Orlovsky is the one that pointed this out. Kadarius Toney lined up in that alignment, either on the left or right side of the ball, that far past the line of scrimmage, 6 times on Sunday, and they didn't flag it or warn him or any of the above any of the times until the last one. That is where the anger comes from. If the officials want to argue it's so blatant we have to call it, he had done the exact thing 5 times prior, and it's not an issue till there's 90 seconds left in the game. Last night, Jalen Waddle was lined up in that exact positioning. This is a penalty that, while against the rules, historically is not called.
Right.
In the 2021 season, it was called once all year. Last season, it was called twice all year. Now, after the game, the official on NBC said it's a point of emphasis this year. It's been called 11 times. That is accurate, but in my opinion, misleading, because I looked it up. Going into this weekend, it had been called 11 times, but 8 of those 11 were on offensive linemen in tush-push situations where, yes, they're looking at it. Yes, it would gain you an advantage. And yes, that is a new thing kind of this year. It had been called on wide receivers before Sunday 3 times all year. So that's where the frustration comes from. And if you were the Chiefs, and last week, not Reed, not Mahomes, not anyone, blamed the refs when there was a blatantly missed DPI, I think the frustration bubbles up because it's like, okay, so you guys can miss a game-changing obvious call, but then find, a game-changing no one noticed it in real time call. With all that said, they've got to be better and they've got to be smarter. And the team that really might be most damaged by that call are teams fighting for a wild card spot because the Bills are now alive once again when they would have been dead without that flag.
So, I thought this is an interesting thought, I think. I think the Packers are a good team that just, were a favorite Monday Night Football, beat the Chiefs, got into their fields a little bit. They thought they were a little better than they were, but I think they're good. But you could argue that the Packers are better this year than last year at this time. They're a very twitchy, athletic team and tough to defend.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy, without Aaron Rodgers, is crushing. Dak is having his best year. And it is interesting, with great quarterbacks, there is usually a wake. I mean, good God, how long did Denver take to find Elway's replacement? How long Miami to face Marino's? Even Aaron Rodgers post-Favre was 6-10. And it is, I'm just going to throw this out there because you've always had strong thoughts. We all know Aaron's talented. There is no wake in Green Bay. There is no wake for McCarthy. Aaron's the one that's in the worst spot. And it leads me to the Cowboy thing. I watched the Cowboys and McCarthy, and I'm like, maybe we blame the wrong guy in Green Bay. This offense looks exceptional.
So McCarthy's biggest problem is his biggest weakness is the one that we get to see on Sundays. The coaches who are most unfairly maligned historically are coaches who are great schematically or game plan or motivationally during the week that we don't see. And then their biggest weakness is clock or game management. This was, what bedeviled Andy Reid his entire career until Mahomes came in to fix some things. He was objectively excellent at things that we don't necessarily see what goes into it. Getting players to buy in, you know what I mean? Being a guy that players trust.
Yep.
And obviously the schematics, but his clock management and timeout management was so bad, and we see that every Sunday. A similar thing, I think, has happened with McCarthy. I mean, I talk to Greg Jennings almost every day on the show, and it's not just because he won a Super Bowl with McCarthy. Greg won a Super Bowl with Aaron and is critical of Aaron. And he has for years said that Mike McCarthy does not get the credit that he deserves, and it's because the weakness was, was on such loud display. Yeah. Now, as far as Aaron, at this point, you talk sometimes about winning the divorce. And right now, I don't know that the Packers are winning, but I do know that Aaron is not. And I do know that his final year in Green Bay seemed to be kind of stillborn from the beginning. And now obviously the Jets tenure hasn't gotten off the ground, and he still seems to be, putting out there, I might come back at some point this season, and I don't know who that narrative benefits at all. So I was a seller on Aaron Rodgers' Jets tenure before the Achilles injury. I'm certainly a seller after watching that offense perform all season long and watching how the personnel management and the coaching has gone for them this season.
The Brock Purdy's interesting because I was thinking about this, is that two things can be true. That we have a history from Romo, Brady, Kurt Warner, undrafted or late round guys become great. And also Debo, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Kittle, Shanahan are spectacular Hall of Famers. And this weekend I watched Purdy. And I've said before, he makes too many good throws not to be good. He's a good player. But,
good player.
But when you're 17-0, when all these guys are healthy, will there be a point that you and I go, okay, maybe he's very good? That two things are true.
I don't think so.
Okay, you don't think so?
No, I don't think so. Listen, here's what I think. Because I agree with you. He's good, which means he's better than I thought he was. There's no doubt about that. But I was watching Tua last night struggle mightily The moment Tyreek Hill is either off the field or banged up, and I couldn't help but think about Brock Purdy. And Colin, I'm going to oversimplify it, but to me, there are 3 buckets you can put NFL quarterbacks in. There's the just can't play bucket.
Yeah.
And they might have a game, they might even have a month, but it doesn't matter whether they can be drafted as high as Mariota or Trubisky or Darnold or Zach. Over a long enough sample, it is very, very clear that they cannot be winning players. There is then the bucket the vast majority of these guys fall into. They're good, and they are going to mirror their exact situation. If they have bad infrastructure, they will look terrible. If they have okay infrastructure, they will look okay. And if they have great infrastructure, they will look great. That to me is Tua Tagovailoa. That is Brock Purdy. That was Baker Mayfield. That was Jimmy Garoppolo. We have seen it happen 4 separate times with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is the same guy. We have seen him be awful with Fisher, go to a Super Bowl with the highest scoring team, be awful again, be good again, and now it looks like he's trending towards bad again because the offensive line isn't as good as it once was. He hasn't changed. He is a guy, he is a chameleon at quarterback, which is he will mirror his circumstances exactly. And then there is the bucket of guys that everyone is chasing. The true difference makers. The guys that if the situation is terrible, they will keep you in it. If the situation is mediocre, you are a contender. And if the situation is great, you will win championships. That is obviously Patrick Mahomes. That is Joe Burrow. That is why this year in the draft, Colin, while I didn't see the C.J. Stroud thing coming, I argued take Richardson over Bryce because Richardson at least has the chance to be one of those difference makers. I watched last night's game. And I know people will get mad at me for this, but I hope it proves it's not a Purdy specific opinion. And if I were told, hey, you're getting the 33rd NFL team, and we're not telling you the players who are on it, you can have either one of those quarterbacks moving forward, Will Levis or Tua, I would take a deep breath and take Levis because maybe he's going to be a difference maker. I know what Tua is. There's no shame in that. You can win, in certain cases, you can win a championship with that. But we need to be honest about who the great players are. And the frustrating thing to me about the Purdy discourse is all of his actual great teammates, whenever they are talked to by the media, it's about Purdy. Trent Williams has to just keep answering questions about how great Purdy is. Christian McCaffrey does. The same exact things. They were asked about Jimmy Garoppolo. Why don't you think he gets the respect? And they said the same things they're saying now. Now, Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's obvious. But that doesn't mean these guys are the stars of their team, the MVPs of the league, or guaranteed hits in any environment. And that's what a star quarterback is. A star quarterback is a guy who, no matter the environment, you are going to be in the room of contention. And in the right environment, you are going to be a perennial favorite. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But we've seen a lot of guys like this, and I think everyone deep down knows it, but for some reason they think it's like unfair to say it, whether it's about Tua in reference to Tyreek or Brock Purdy in reference to the 5 All-Pros he has on offense.
Finally, we got about 90 seconds left. I think the in-season tournament's a bigger deal than people subscribe to, not a ratings or a revenue deal. But I said this a year ago. If NBA was March Madness, single game elimination, I think LeBron, I'd take him over everybody but Jokic. The Lakers went 7-0 in in-season tournament games. I'd take him over Luka. I'd take him over Tatum. I'd take him over Giannis. I would take him over everybody except Jokic. The minute LeBron was given an opportunity to have March Madness in the NBA, single games, he dominates. I said what I said. I believe it. I think he's the second best player in the league still in a one-game, well-rested situation.
It's so funny you say that because after, I don't know which game of the in-season tournament it was, we talked about on the show, I gave a slightly different scenario, which is you have a playoff series tied 2-2, Colin.
Yeah. And
games 5, 6, and 7 go Monday, Thursday, Sunday. 2 days off between it, and every player in the league is healthy. Nikola Jokic is the number 1 pick of the draft.
Yep.
And after that, the oldest player in the league with the most minutes of anyone ever is at least being discussed alongside peak of his prime, top 20 all-time Giannis. Entering his prime, will be top 20 all-time Luka. Defending MVP Joel Embiid. I don't think there's a person in the world that in those circumstances right now would take Embiid over soon to be 39 years old LeBron James. It is remarkable that now there are real questions about the durability and about fatigue and about all those things. But that exact scenario of, and that's why to me, and I'll leave it here because I know we're late, I was so interested in these in-season tournament elimination games because I know it's not a ring like a real championship. I understand all of that. But this was the first time we have seen LeBron fully healthy in a playoff format since the title. Because the year after the title with the Lakers, he had Solomon Hill had sprained his ankle, and last year he had the broken foot that he was dealing with. And LeBron showed us that once again, even as he approaches 39 years old here in 2 weeks, that there are not 3 guys in the league you'd rather have if they're fully functional. It's totally remarkable.
Yep, Nick Wright. Great seeing you as always. First things first on fire. By the way, there's a nice billboard out here in Los Angeles on the road with Nick.
Oh, they put it up.
Yeah.
Oh, take a picture. I bullied them into doing it. Did they take yours down? That'll make it even more satisfying.
Yeah, I think they did, actually. And yours is And yours is cool. I'll give you credit. It's cool. You and Brew and Wild are on.
Awesome.
It's great. All right, buddy. Good seeing you.
See you, Colin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.